Sometimes, for instance, with Partners, which is the second one I had published, I was sitting in a cafe and listening to some people talk at another table, and they were talking about how an old guy and a young guy cannot communicate. They don't speak the same language, even though they both think they're speaking English, or Canadian to be more precise. And I was thinking, in a lot of ways that's true, but they can also learn to communicate. So I started off, I was going to write about a fellow around 60, and then I thought, no, the time frame we're talking about, which is right after the American Civil War, old was around 40, so we'll make this guy around 38. And the young guy, we'll have to make him late teens. And made the young fellow was raised without hardly any schooling, and the old guy is well educated, an ex-military man, and actually a teacher. And that's what was to demonstrate communication between these two different peoples, and have them communicating by the end of the story. And got nicely started into the story, and I thought, geez, I'd like to put this little bit of history in there, and I'd like to put this little bit of history in there. And so I had these two characters travel through, well, in the beginning they have some problems with the Blackfoot Nation, and then of course the Cree and the Blackfoot didn't get along, so we'll include that, and it just built into a story that got longer and longer and longer.
I've seen the jungle rain, I've seen the white-capped ocean, and the Alberta plains.
As a musician, you'll take just about any job to stay alive so that you can play music. I've worked with some of the old-timers. I worked on the Penalty Ranch with a Peace Country pioneer called Rennie Denon. He came here in 1926 and had a lot of great stories that he could tell. One summer when I was on the ranch, a fellow by the name of Harold Baker, we called him Pa, came up, and his wife was, well, actually his third wife was the cook, and he was 20 years older than her. He was 96, she was 76, and he had been the head blacksmith on a big ranch down by Rocky Mountain House when he was a very young man. They were big enough ranch that there was 3 blacksmiths, and he had a lot of stories about the pioneer days of the cattle industry before the turn of the 20th century. A lake lay before him, perhaps the very one he sought, one arm of it disappearing to the left. Directly below him on the shore of that lake were the remains of a camp now destroyed. I took a lot of those stories and information from other fellows. There was another fellow that came to the Peace Country, and his name was John Brown. He came in 1898 or 97 perhaps. He was on his way to the Yukon to the Klondike Gold Rush. Never made it. He did make quite a dent on the Peace River country, though. There's 3 families in the North Peace that are descendant from him. 3 family names, and he had a lot of stories about the country. And as a matter of fact, I think it's my 5th novel. It's already edited. I call it Jake's Justice, and I got to use some of John's stories. Changed substantially, but they started off as being John Brown stories within Jake's Justice. And it was going to be a short story, but once I got started on it, I couldn't get home from work soon enough to continue writing, because I wrote it pretty quick. I was pretty happy with it.
That's it for this week's show. If you know of anybody I should feature here on a coming episode who has a cool story, let me know. Getting in touch by email, srobbins@astral.com is probably the easiest way, or you can look me up on Facebook. Just look up CJDC Stacey Robbins. Coming up next is the CJDC Evening News, but I'll be back again next week with another edition of Peace Profiles. Until then, take care.
CJDC TV